Welcome to another episode of the N64 Japsci, the show where we take a Japanese exclusive N64 game and review it with the aim of deciding two things. Firstly, is it any good? And secondly, can you play it without knowing the Japanese language? In this episode, we're taking a look at 64 Ōzumō, a game published and developed by Bottoms Up in November 1997. Now, you'll all know that I love things quirky in Japanese, and so an N64 game based around sumo wrestling was a game I was quite looking forward to playing. I even remember seeing previews for it in my beloved N64 magazine, and I eagerly awaited a release date for it. Then, as months went by, I quickly realised that this was not going to be coming to the UK, and alas, I never played it until recently. Back then, I guess I was just a stupid kid. After all, why in the heck would anyone publish a game about a sport which is only big in Japan, here in the UK? Now, as you know, I've been to Japan but can't speak the language, so when I heard there was a simulation game I was expecting to last no more than 5 minutes, with the menus being all in Japanese, and then admit defeat. This is kinda true, but as always, if you persevere you get the rewards, and thankfully I'll go on record as saying that I bloody love this game. 64 Ōzumō is a weird one. The main core of the game is in the story mode, and whilst I can't read the text, I think from the images the storyline goes something like this. You start off as a young boy leaving your father's home to pursue your dream of becoming a yokozuna. Your father appears to be very angry about this, but how the heck would I know? After a trip on a high-speed train, you arrive at a training dojo where you begin your sumo career. You start off in small venues and work your way through a series of matches. After every few matches or so, a cutscene pushes the story forward. It looks like you start to gain some fans, and you also make a lady friend who seems to follow you from this point on in the game. As you win more matches, the higher in the rankings you get, before it appears that you get an invitation to a bigger tournament. Your trainer is not happy, and so he makes you fight him in order to leave. This is kinda like a boss battle in the game. After defeating him, you set off on a plane and it's onwards and upwards from there on in. The story is actually quite gripping, and you'll really want to get through the next match in order to see what happens next. The game also has some character development, as you'll get to do some mini-games in order to boost certain aspects of your character. This includes simple training exercises, all the way to choosing food from a soup bowl. They're a nice diversion and distraction from the main wrestling matches, and it allows you to customise your character's attributes so you bond with them a little bit better. In terms of actual wrestling, the controls are pretty spot on. The matches themselves only last a short time period each, usually no more than 1 minute, and the aim is to push your opponent out of the ring or throw them onto the ground. As you're playing, you'll see a series of buttons that come up above you, and pressing them builds your momentum bar. If your momentum drops too low, you can easily be pushed or thrown, and the same goes for your opponent. The moveset is actually quite varied, and you can turn your opponents, slam them, drop them, throw them over your head. It all looks quite cool, and surprisingly it doesn't get repetitive at all. The graphics are not the best, but this was a fairly early N64 title. The sumo wrestlers all look quite cool, even if their faces do lack expression much of the time. The backgrounds can also be bland at times, but things do get better the further you get into the game, and you'll get to wrestle in some pretty spectacular rings. The music in the game is also pretty awesome. If you're a fan of the Goemon games, then you'll be right at home here. The music is the same sort of wacky Japanese style you'll be accustomed to, and there's an announcer who calls the shots during your matches. All in all, it's not going to win any awards for graphics or sound design, but it does get the job done well. Speaking of awards, this game was far from it. It was panned even in its native Japan, and import reviews in the West were also not interested in it. This may be a good thing, however, as the game is quite cheap to pick up on eBay as an import, and it's a game I think that you really might enjoy. So the big question is, can you play this without knowing Japanese? Well, the simple answer is yes and no. You can play it and get through the game, but I really think you'd be missing out on the story mode, which does seem to be quite cool. You can just about make out what's going on in the cutscenes, but it would be nice to be able to understand the emotions of your sumo wrestler as he goes through the game. So what do you think of 64 Ōzumō? Does it look like a game you'd like to play, or are you thinking of importing it? Then let me know. If you've got any questions about the game, let me know in the comments below, and until next time, sayonara.